Our 14th town hall. That means we've been doing this for 28 weeks now without interruption, which is half a year. So things move along at pace, and to do anything consistently for 6 months in the crypto space is definitely equivalent to 6 years elsewhere. So well done to everybody. Well done for keeping up just the quality and the pace of development in this incredible organization. Without saying too much more, we'll dive straight into a message in a bottle and a letter to status from Jared, who would like to talk to us a little bit about this, if he's on the line.
Yeah, I'm here. So basically, I'm going to go on a couple of weeks off and just sort of pause and reflect on status and on life in general. And there's been some talk about creating a sort of North Star document, or this sort of strategy, and communicating that to as many people as possible. And it certainly goes really well with the sort of values and principles. So basically, I created a massive brain dump of just like a lot of thoughts that I have, and trying to give a lot of context around what we're doing, and the different components and how they kind of all fit together. It's still a draft and work in progress, but I have published it early, and it's quite lengthy already. So feel free to give it a read. That's pretty much it from me. I would really like to have an open discussion about these sort of things, and collectively work on some kind of North Star document. And you're more than welcome to use these ideas as a base for that, or not. And that's pretty much it from me. But the sort of values and principles that came out of Basel that Oscar will talk about now are just so important for all of us to really understand and also accept into our lives. And they're all things that can be changed, and can be openly discussed by everybody, because they're yours as well as anybody else's. So I hope we have a really interesting discussions in the hashtag general after that. If there's any other questions or any other points that we should be discussing, I'd love to hear more about that. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jared. Yeah, I strongly encourage everybody to head over to our.status.im, which is a new blog platform set up by our own exiled surfer, and huge kudos to him for setting up a really smooth platform there for us so that we can avoid some of the censorship problems that we've run into on Medium. We'll be talking more about that likely in the next town hall and going into August as we sort of populate it with a little bit more content. But there's this incredible letter from Jared, and then two really awesome updates from People Ops, who have been doing the most incredible stuff. And we'll get to Steph and Kerry a little bit later in the call. But first, we want to start with the principles from Basel that Jared just mentioned. These are a work in progress. It's Oscar.
Just on that point, Andy.
Please.
Just on that point, Andy, also everybody should feel free to contribute to the our.status.im as well. So,
yeah.
Create your own blog post and share your knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. I strongly encourage people to head over there and discuss, what's on your mind in your own voice, and build a platform for yourself, so that we can sort of not identify, but allow for the community to see into the way that we think about what we're doing and how we approach what we're building and why we think it's important and what motivates us on a day-to-day basis about sort of coming to work for status in this completely decentralized and remote setup. There's some really, really interesting stuff from across the board. I'm particularly finding it with some of the podcasts that we're doing, and this new platform that's been set up by Exiled Surfer is a really great way to sort of present your own views within the context of a broader kind of community and decentralized organization. So that's very exciting. Oscar is going to sort of talk through some of the principles and where we are right now with them.
Thank you. Sure. So as some of you know, a month or so, we had this meetup in Basel, and I think this was brought up during the last town hall. And what we did there, we were a small group of people, and we were sort of thinking about what we think status stands for or should stand for. And specifically, we used this approach where we thought about all the things we're doing right now and how we are lacking in some ways. And this led to sort of a wall of shame and so on. And then we tried to sort of extract out of that, and also based on sort of previous experience, a set of sort of principles. And I'm not going to elaborate on them more in detail because they're still a work in progress, and it's better if you read about them in detail in the links after this slide. But I just want to sort of list them here and also say sort of where we are right now. So initially it was just a small group of people. After that, we've had about a month where everyone have been able to comment, and there's been some good debate in discuss and so on. And the idea is that we want to have disagreement as early as possible, because these are our principles and it's our culture, and it's important that we all believe in these and that we stand behind them. And if there's disagreement, it's healthy to bring that out as early as possible. So it's actually something that we all stand behind. So the way I'm imagining we do this is that right now we're at the sort of soft signaling step where people can read them over and think, is this something that I wholeheartedly sort of stand behind? And that's what's started happening right now when we see some discussion where people disagree about certain principles, or maybe the way they're phrased and so on. And then once we sort of have a rough consensus, the idea is that we all sort of cryptographically sign these. So it's ingrained as a sort of version 1 of our principles in the blockchain. And then we want to sort of live and breathe this in everything we do. Next slide. So the goal of this is that we all sort of, all core contributors and anyone in community can sort of sign these as something that we think is worthwhile to uphold and live by. And there's also an annotated version of these, which are less concise and might elaborate on how they apply to what we're doing right now, further reading, and sort of a way to deepen our understanding. And these are sort of, I guess, like an interpretation, and the idea is that anyone can add things here as we sort of gain in our collective understanding. And these also, they are not meant to be sort of lofty principles. They're meant to be instrumental in a way, like they should be things that impact how we make decisions, and they have different sort of consequences. And it's a sort of way to decentralize decision making by having a shared cultural norms and so on. So what you can do right now, core contributor or someone listening in, the most important thing is to review and also actively help us reach consensus. So if you see there's a disagreement, maybe you can propose some sort of synthesis or figure out how we can sort of reach some shared sort of agreement about these things. You can also help by spreading knowledge through Idea Jam, which is this thing that PeopleOps and Eric initially pushed, which is that 2 people randomly pair up and discuss these and sort of share what they come up with. And also, if all of this is just news to you, you don't know what we're talking about, just reach out to me or anyone else who talks about this thing. And there's also some calls that PeopleOps arranged. And I'm going to hold one on Wednesday, 11 a.m. European time. If anyone wants to just chat about these things, understand the context and more detail and so on.
Cool. Thank you so much, Oscar. We move into Core OKRs, which I think you're also going to be presenting.
Yeah, so here's a quick recap from Q2. It's been a bit more than a month, but just roughly these are the scores. So 0.5, normally you want to end up between 0.6, 0.7 or something like this. And the idea is that you pick stretch goals. So you pick goals that are ambitious, but still attainable. And yeah, I mean, we did, considering this course, we did reasonably well with reliability and getting the bed out of the door, but we maybe did less well when it comes to things like dog fooding and using it every day. But hopefully we'll see some improvements with that as the desktop gets further along. Going into Q3, it's slightly slided, so it's August through October. And here are the sort of objectives, and they are the result of a combination of S&T sort of voting DApp and also some discussion around core, like voting among core contributors, and just sort of generally what seems feasible given the teams and everything we have. So the first is around improving decentralization, and this includes proper light client support. The second is improve user experience to increase engagement, and this is largely about ENS, but also about increasing chat usage in general. And then we have first steps towards a DAO. So that's essentially an extension of liquid voting and liquid pledging and the voting DApp. And then developers being able to rely on status dev tools, including documentation. And then reduce our wall of shame, which I mentioned earlier. And this is about things that we feel are just wrong, like shortcuts we've taken that we need to address. And a lot of these are centered on security and privacy. Next slide. So I won't go through them in detail, but you can just have a look. And the most important thing here is actually getting proper lifeline support, which we disabled in order to ship the beta, but we want to have it operational again and used by at least some parts of our user base. And others around sort of discovery protocol and getting started with an actual proof of concept for incentive layer, and also having many users sort of running status nodes for something like DApp nodes and so on. Next slide. And this one is it's a mix of sort of getting ENS, a sort of core S&T use case, into the app, which is useful for lots of reasons, and then also about general engagement. And then first steps towards the DAO, as mentioned before, this is about devoting the app and getting topic democracy going and liquid pledging and so on. So this is sort of beginning to having an actual decentralized organization, autonomous organization. This one is around developer tooling and also around sort of the extension work and optimizing that for status. And then our wall of shame. So the biggest one here is single out this perfect forward secretable chat. And this includes sort of a draft of a formal spec. And at some point we want to be a secure messaging, but a messenger, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. So this is sort of the initial step in order to actually be taken seriously in this space, and having something that can actually be peer reviewed and so on. But that will take a long time, but it's the first step is perfect forward secrecy. And then also address top 10 wall of shame issues. And this includes some of the things to single out before, but also various sort of security privacy things. For example, removing Mixpanel, which we've already done, but also things like reproducible builds and so on. And then also all core contributors read and sign our core principles and some things around security impact. Next steps. So we might have some final tweaks. So I encourage you to, if you have some thoughts on this, maybe they don't make sense, you think the priorities are wrong, something's missing too much, just reach out and be vocal about it. And then we also want to figure out owners for each of these key results. So this can be both teams and swarms, but also individuals. So for example, Andrea has taken it upon himself to sort of owning perfect forward secrecy through swarm 289. And also sort of optional step, if individual teams want more granular OKRs, then go for it. And the same thing goes for individuals. And then we'll follow up during town halls about the progress towards these OKRs. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Yeah, there's some really exciting stuff there, and it's amazing to see the gradual evolution towards operating in a truly decentralized and autonomous fashion. These things don't happen fast, but certainly when you do them well, they can have really, really long-term impacts. And it's fantastic to see us as a group of people sort of gradually moving closer and closer towards some of those ideals. With that, into the non-tech updates and our people ops. So this should be Kerry.
Hi, this is Kerry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So we just have one new core contributor to introduce you to this update. It's Anthony Leiber, who's joining our Embark team as a software engineer. In terms of hiring, our most pressing need there is a legal counsel. So maybe you know someone in your network who'd be a great fit. If so, head over to our jobs page for that referral. Next slide, please. Cool. So for this people update, it's really a collection of firsts for us. We held our first people ops offsite in Zurich last week. We'll tell you a bit more about what we discussed there. We also reached 97 core contributors, a number that apparently was quite surprising. I think we all kind of thought that number was actually lower, but we checked that it shot up. So thanks to all the hard work for everyone involved in bringing those people on. And we're looking forward to welcoming more of you contributors into the fold in future. And you heard it here previously. We also jumped on the bandwagon of blogging. So we're live with our People Ops blog, and we're really using that to kind of like mull through and explore our thoughts on how the people parts work in a decentralized organization. So yeah, we're planning quite a lot of content for that coming up. So check that out. And just going back to the people offsite, I'll just mention a couple of key highlights for you, and the notes are available if anyone wants to check out in detail, like what we got through and what we agreed. But essentially, and Nabil, feel free to jump in. You're also there if I'm not doing this any justice. The main things to highlight were that like our principles and values are critical considerations for us. So we really just wanted to check ourselves and make sure that we were infusing them through all our work rather than them just being an afterthought as we develop people support. Everything that we do needs to be deliberately and carefully designed to aim towards greater decentralization. Another thing that we thought was really important to focus on was that we avoid operating in silos. I think it's quite tempting to think, okay, we have a hiring part of the team, an HR part, and a finance part. But really what we want to aim for is better cross-collaboration on projects with not just people ops wider team members, but our whole network of contributors. So to that end, what we agreed upon was to have 8 main areas of focus, and that different members of the team would act as owners for each area. And that's not to say that that means that they'll do the work, but be kicking off discussions and collaborate with everyone on how people ops can best support those areas individually. So you'll see those posts go live in the coming days and weeks. Feel free to jump in. If there's anything you feel strongly about the work that we're doing, we would love to have you on board. And those items, the 8 main focus areas were community participation, hiring, learning development, contributor experience, performance, logistics, finance, and decentralization. And just a quick other 2 items to mention. You heard Oscar briefly cover this earlier, but we'd love to see you in Idea Jam. It's just a place for those philosophical chats if you want to mull things over with your fellow contributors. That went live today. And then also just a call for registrations for our awesome events happening in Prague in October. And the link is in the slides.
Yeah, just to reiterate on the event. So basically Friday to Sunday, we're going to have our hackathon in Prague. And then on the Monday, it'll be like a kind of all-day town hall similar to what we had in Bangkok. And then with DevCon itself, we have been asked to limit ourselves to 20 people. So for those that want to stick around but won't be going to DevCon, we'll have space in the hotel to basically have team events. And most likely for the 20 people who will go to DevCon, we'll do some sort of raffle or lottery. So just randomly pick 20 people out of everyone who wants to go will end up getting tickets. So that's most likely how we will, kind of the fairest way for us to do it. If you have any questions or thoughts on that, there's the events DevCon channel. You can just join and like if you have ideas or anything like that. But please make sure you RSVP so that we can start getting logistics together.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kerry and Nabil. I strongly encourage everybody to get ready for that hackathon because me, Josh, and Johnny are putting together some really, really amazing stuff in tandem with Rajani and Aaron, who are on the hunt for the most amazing venue in Prague. So start getting excited and definitely make sure you get to Prague a few days early. The hackathon starts on the 26th of October. And you can apply for that at hackathon.status.im. Seriously, you should get there. We move into another exciting thing, which is Status Studio, and this should be Akshi.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm Akshi. I just started at Status about 3 weeks ago, and this is the first Status Studio update at the Town Hall, but we will hopefully be a regular feature going forward. So Status Studio, what is Status Studio? I think most of us know from hearing from the community informally, and then also through forums like Replies, where the interviews were summarized, etc., that there is a need amongst the developers for an IDE as well as a consolidated repository that is easy to navigate for education resources and just how-tos and being able to quickly develop dApps. So Status Studio is where that gap is going to be met from Status, and it's really exciting as a product because it will build a lot on Embark and what that team is doing already with respect to a great debugger, better than any other that has been around in the space. So essentially what Status Studio is, at least so far in the thinking, which is evolving as we go, since it's a very, very new project from an operations perspective, not so much from an idea perspective per se, but essentially it's an IDE as well as an education platform, which will be focused on Ethereum blockchain developers particularly. And the goal is that it should be able to address all the pain points of the community that exist with current solutions around this. And there are a few out there. And it should essentially become a one-stop shop for developers through interactive learning. So that's what the current thinking on Studio is. In terms of what we've been doing so far, we've been focused on putting together a high-level product strategy document for what the product might look like, the philosophy behind it, a roadmap, what the resourcing might look like, and all those sort of standard planning documents. In the next 1 or 2 months, it would be great to get feedback into the thinking within that from both the status community, but also beyond. And we will plan to get really broad in terms of the feedback and speak to the Remix team, for example, post some threads on the Discuss forum, etc. But that's the immediate next step, is to incorporate that, to flesh out the MVP a little bit more from a product and features perspective, so that we can be very clear about exactly what we are trying to build and in what timelines. And also that also goes for obviously that goes for both the IDE component as well as the education content from an outline and framework perspective. And then some of the more operational setup items will happen over the next 1 or 2 months around just how do we resource or hire for the studio team. Would it be freelancers or contractors or other experts that we use existing across the status group, starting some light branding and marketing for Studio. So just very quickly, how can all of you get involved? Please do jump in. It would be fantastic, again, to get very broad opinions and comments into this, because it is so new and it's a great stage to get all those thoughts and ideas out there, especially if you guys are closer to the actual users of something like this, so the developer community in particular. There is a Google Doc document that has all of the components that I just talked about, from the roadmap to the strategy to the thinking so far, and the link for that is up here. If you don't have access to it, when you click on it, just email me and I will make sure that you have access, but feel free to comment on that document. There are also notes from the various conversations over the past 3 weeks on the philosophy and the vision for the product. So feel free to preview that. There's a Slack channel, just #studio. Feel free to jump into that or join that and begin a conversation there. I'll make sure to capture everything and incorporate as much as makes sense for the product, for the MVP going forward. We'll continue to have town hall updates going forward consistently. And then, of course, as you look at the documents, you'll see that we have some immediate needs for some skills, designers or tech content writers or front-end devs, etc., coming up in a staggered way in the next couple of months. So if you know some great people who might be interested in the education side of this or building a new product, please send referrals to us. Those are always great and welcome. At some point very soon, we'll run a poly survey with more features and more sort of the MVP type focus of Studio, where it would be great to get all of your feedback in as well. So that's just a very quick update of what's been going on in the last 3 weeks, and really hope to push this forward through the end of the year so that we have we are essentially targeting an MVP sometime, end of Q1 or early Q2 of 2019. So really looking forward to pushing forward on this. That's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Akshi. Yeah, there's 2 comments to be made here. I think the first is that it never ceases to surprise me, the quality and expertise and passion of the people that we do get involved with Status, and Akshi is yet another example of someone with whom it is genuinely a pleasure to work. And I think the other part of this is that as we move toward a more decentralized way of organizing, of sort of distributing ourselves around the world and doing all of these votes and coming up with OKRs in a completely remote fashion, a big part in that has to be education. We sort of have to take people along with us. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves, I think, on the decentralized edge without much of a crowd behind us. And so these kind of educational efforts are very, very important to what we want to do going forward. And that also plays into what we were talking about with our blog and the tech talks, as always. That moves us quickly into marketing. This is Sean today, I think, with some brief updates.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so just a quick, and apologies, my connection's not great. So if I start cutting out, Kim will jump in at any point in time. So just a quick update on the meme competition. So we wrapped up the meme competition. It was a fantastic effort. Some high level stats. So overall total impressions were about 5.3 million, which was fantastic. Total mentions was 667. A lot of that obviously contributed by people sharing some of the really great memes, but then the total volume of individual community members involved is 231. And the other great thing was that we actually had 32 countries represented. Another piece that was awesome was one of the tools that we use actually is able to look at the volume of emojis used, and as you can see there were some really great emojis. It kind of epitomized how fun the competition was and how much the community really enjoyed it. On the actual picks, though, two really great stories to call out here. The first one is the community pick. So if any of you kind of like paid attention with the community competition, we had two categories. One, which was the people's choice, which the community would select based on, simply just showing their love via Twitter. And the other one was a choice based on our, it was selected by our meme master, Maria from the ECF. So the community pick, really awesome one here. It was actually a member of our newly formed Iranian community. It was a member from that community, which was awesome to see, status going global. And then on Maria's pick, there was a really great story. So the actual person that was that won was a community member from Nepal, from Kathmandu, and they contacted Maria, and they actually contacted Eduardo from the core team as well. And just just shared a story about how excited they were and privileged they were to be part of it. And I just wanted to share a little bit about their story, about their background, because we found it really interesting. They informed Maria of their realities back home in Nepal, and how that there's people are becoming less and less. They have less and less confidence in public and private institutions, and they spoke a lot at length about the limitations of accessing the blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. They actually are self-taught Web3 developer, and that they're closely following the work of the Ethereum magicians, and they love the spirit and the genuine enthusiasm there. They also spoke about the need for decentralized platforms like Status to allow for free and open communications in their home, and that centralized institutions actually curtail and monitor communications, and some are even incarcerated for the discussions they have. So they feel like Status is such a huge opportunity for a platform like Status to have that free and open communication. Anyway, bit of a derailment, but a really awesome story. Maria from Golem and ECF, she's actually going to be documenting this story and sharing it at a later stage. So we'll definitely point everyone in the direction of that. But it was a really awesome story. And we just thought we wanted to share that. So that's the bit on the meme competition. Kim?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep.
I can go really quickly through the marketing update. So we have our typical ongoing call for content, either core contributors, but also from the broader Status community. If there's content you'd like to see or share, please reach out to us. We would love to talk about that and get that posted on our channels. We have our Status projects that are ongoing, upcoming events, which we'll talk a little bit more detail about ETHIndia, but we are an ETH Global sponsor. So we have a few coming up, ETHIndia in 2 weeks, and Berlin, which we are actively planning for, and then San Francisco, TADHack, our own hackathon, and DevCon, of course. Campaign and community, Sean is actively working on the advocacy program, so naming will be coming soon for that, and a lot more details to share on that soon. Our podcast will be launching very soon. We have, I think, 4 or 5 already recorded and edited. So we're going to come out of the gate strong with, I think, 3 to start once we put our podcast page up. We wrapped up the meme competition, which was exciting. And right on the heels of that, we're going to go into a tea design competition. So stay tuned for that, because I'm sure the community will have a lot of fun with that. We're looking for some cool and fun, creative status t-shirt designs. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we are actively planning for ETHIndia, which is right around the corner. We are a gold tier sponsor for ETHIndia. Andy and Sean will be attending, and Andy will be speaking. So that's always exciting. On August 10th, there's going to be a speaker session, which has about 400 to 500 attendees. They're going to have their own swag bags, and that's just going to be sort of like a general attendee session. We are going to work with a local designer on an exclusive status ETHIndia t-shirt, the same designer who did the ETHIndia tee. And then, so that will be part of the swag bags. And then on the 11th and 12th, the hackathon will actually take place with another 500 attendees, more swag. Part of ETHIndia experience, there'll be ongoing yoga, there'll be a relaxation room for meditation and sleeping with mattresses, like a general quiet zone. There's going to be a game zone with PlayStations. They're going to have photo booths, a feedback board where hackers can post feedback. Just a lot of stuff going on with ETHIndia. So we're really excited to be part of that and contribute as much as we can. We are also, ETHIndia, similar to Berlin, is going to have their own token. So there will be a Moksha coin, which means Nirvana. So stay tuned for more details to come on how this will be distributed and used at the event. And Bounty's network will be accessible through status at the event as well. So we're excited and more to come on all of that. And then we do have a local community member who will be attending, Prablin. And I don't know if Sean has anything to add, but he's going to be probably live tweeting and just representing the local community at the event and getting involved, very hands-on. And he's really excited for that. And we're excited to have him.
Cool. I can speak to this real quickly. So just looking back at the past fortnight of content. So there's kind of 2 things that we've seen. We increased the volume of, I guess, content that we were posting over the past 2 weeks. So we did actually see our impressions increase. Unfortunately, the outcome of having a really successful meme competition is that in the following fortnight, you'll see a slight drop off in the volume of your engagements. And so that's what we've seen this past fortnight. Total mentions decreased only slightly by 6%, but something that drove a lot of the mentions was the piece around the ETH report. So that was a key driver to a lot of the mentions as well. That's it for that slide.
Cool. Thank you so much, marketing. Yeah, I'm really personally looking forward to ETHIndia in a huge way. It's going to be exciting to be there with Sean in particular. And if you're looking for any kind of mentorship from Wheel of Awareness to Web3, you'll most likely find me in between the hacking zone and the meditation room. This is the part of the town hall that I'm most excited about, though, the UX and UXR stuff, because I've seen these slides. I think it's Pat that's going to be presenting, but there's some really, really awesome updates from UXR. Let's hear it.
Hi, Andy, it's Maciej. I'll take
over. Oh, there we go, Maciej.
Yeah, for the first 2 slides. So hello, everyone. What I'd like to show you today is our newest addition to the chat design. It's replying to messages. So it's super simple. You would long press on any message in chat, and from a menu that would pop up, you would tap reply. Then you would compose your reply, hit send, and boom, just like that, you've quoted a message in your reply. You can also tap on that quote to be taken back to the original message. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy this feature as much as I enjoyed designing it. Next slide, please. Another thing we'd like to share with you today is a prototype of an alternative design for issuing commands in chat. It was heavily influenced by our user research findings. It replaces the command line interface with a more visual UI and builds on top of already existing components. We'll be further evaluating this design with users in September. Now, I know some of you may ask me why do this when we just released our current design. Well, I guess design is never finished. There's always room for iteration and improvement. And on that note, thanks. Back to you, Andy.
Thanks so much, Matthias. And that moves us into the ENS DApp.
It's me. Hi, Andy. Yeah.
There we go. Yes.
Hi, it's Dennis. So ENS DApp, DApp that allows users to register a username in the stateofus.eth domain. Well, this DApp in terms of design is almost done. What I'm doing right now is like designing specs, although some copy is not at the final stage. We had a great walkthrough and feedback session with Swarm and product people the week before. I've implemented this feedback from this session, and all the last changes could be found if you follow this link to the Envision prototype. Regarding these slides, I'm going to mention some last highlights from the DApp. On this slide, you can see the first screen of ENS DApp. It has a nice landing page with the illustration and copy that helps to onboard people. Next slide. Well, that's a cool thing that we've done together with the dev team. Now dapps can retrieve a contact code and soon some other information from status app using status JavaScript API. And we use it here in the ENS DApp. On the left screen in the bottom, where DApp is asking user about her contact code, she can hit a button and grant an access this DApp to get it through status JavaScript API. User gets the notification pop-up that informs her what is going on, and you can see on the right, and you can see it on the right screen. That's all with this ENS DApp. Barry will give you an update on the development side in his talk later.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dennis. I mean, you can tell exactly why I'm so excited about these 4 slides in particular. There's some really, really amazing work coming out of our design team, and huge kudos to all of you and to Andre and Barry and Julian and the rest of the developers who've been working on this API that Dennis mentioned, which is available in the latest nightlies. It's really, really awesome to see. I'm excited to speak about it at all of the upcoming events that marketing mentioned, and then to see some of the further developer tools which are getting closer toward being fully ready. It's some really exciting times because this is the kind of stuff that you can actually build with proper Web3 enabled tools, and it's really incredible to see. So well done to all of you guys. The other activities in the design team, is this still you?
It's still me. So what other people from the design team have been working on? In the beginning of September, we will have before ETH Berlin, we will have a design meetup, and we are planning to organize an in-person test session focusing on chat commands and flows that Machi was made. There is still audience study is going. The study tries to understand some of our markets for whom we are building for. Brand messaging is a work that planned together with the marketing team. Invite friends flow. It will be another test session in the August, somewhere in the middle. We're planning to have it, and it will be dedicated to invite friends flow. We assume it will be like a pro feature, and we are looking for candidates from the trusted test group, which used status for a while. This desktop onboarding design, you have made a great progress on the desktop onboarding design, and there are so many nice small improvements that we're going to roll out them on the mobile platforms as well. ENS DApp, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, web projects. We understand the current situation with the company's website and the demand for them, but we need to take a systematic approach on how to solve it. Soon we will kick off a Swarm focusing mostly on the web. And guys, if you want to jump in and help us with this, we will appreciate your help. And the last topic, the process. We had a call on last Friday with QA team and talked for a while about the process and some stuff that we agreed on. All designers will check design input required labels weekly on the GitHub. Designers will add themselves as an assignee if they work on an issue, so that a QA knows who is working on. Designers will command the short-term solution and create a design issue if a long-term solution is needed. Also, we will have a regular call on Friday to discuss any open issues. Well, that's all that I have.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dennis. Yeah, you know that I'm willing to help with that status web stuff, particularly the developer documentation that we're putting together at the moment, because it's super important. With that, we finally get into our core swarms, and this will be Rachel talking about the 9.23 release.
Yep. Hey, thanks, Andy. So we released 0.9.23 last week, and it was a relatively small update in terms of new features, but there was one particularly significant change, and that was the removal of product tracking. So you might remember in previous versions of Status, when you created a new account, the onboarding flow included a screen asking if you would like to share anonymous data about your activity. And for those who opted in, we were tracking very high level anonymous data, like the number of messages being sent overall and the number of transactions being made overall with this platform called Mixpanel. This is something we did in the spirit of kind of learning and improving the product, but naturally it's been quite controversial from the start, so we decided to remove it. And today there will actually be a post published on Medium that details the decision behind that. But there's also a new swarm idea focused on building out our own decentralized analytics using publicly available on-chain data, not just for us to use for product insight, but to actually help inform our users about the data trails that they are potentially leaving with our app. So you can find the link to that swarm right up on the slide. Another cool thing from this past release that I'd like to call attention to is universal links. So if you have a DApp, for instance, you can link directly to your DApp inside Status using the path that I included on the slide. These also work for public chat and profiles. So we're excited about how these can help people share things that they like inside Status. And as for what's next, we made the decision to skip last week's release cut because there were relatively few changes again for the user and also some potential blockers, but we are on track for 0.9.24 next week. And I think that's it for me. So unless anybody else has something to add on the Mixpanel topic.
No, I think that you summed it up really, really well. And that drive of the decentralized swarm being not just about collecting metrics in a transparent and decentralized way, but also helping inform users of the data trails that they leave is an absolutely critical one. In addition to the fact that, hey, we now have universal links, and there's a few other teams who've been talking about this for a while, but we're the first to get there. So a huge kudos to Jakob in particular for setting up the infrastructure required for that. The core dev meeting, I think this is Oscar.
Yeah. So this is inspired by the sort of Ethereum core dev meetings. And the idea is it's an open meeting in the sense that it's going to be live streamed. And initially we will core contributors who can participate, but we also will sort of get other people, experts in their field, into these meetings. And it's useful for sort of cross-team coordination as we've grown to lots of core contributors, and also getting sort of input from maybe people working on research like ULC or other teams. Maybe there's some crossover concerns with respect to Embark or whatever it might be. So there's a thread on Discuss for more context. And the next meeting, or the first meeting, will be on Monday, next Monday, so the same time as Townhall, and it will be every other week. There's sort of a work in progress agenda. And if you want to take part in this, just message me or join core dev meetings. Yeah, so the idea is essentially just to sync up between teams and talk about things that concern multiple teams, because that's been a need for quite a lot of people and teams. That's it.
Thank you. Into the mobile app, and this week we have an update from Igor on Security Champions experiment that he's been putting together.
Yeah, hi. As you can imagine, since we are working with like sensitive data and with money, security and privacy are very key things for us, and they are in the core principles as well from the Bezel. And as you know, that we were relying mostly on the external audits to figure out if we have some security vulnerabilities or anything like that before. So, but this is not enough. So we decided to try to experiment to build the security culture within the company, so we can do something in like assess some risks and do some threat modeling internally without only relying on the external audit. It doesn't mean that we will not do external audits. It just we have both. Like we have a better picture. We have both external audits and internal. So therefore, we decided to do something that's called the Security Champions experiment. Security Champions is actually one of the techniques that are listed on OWASP webpage. It's sort of decentralization of security efforts, when a lot of the efforts, it goes through the people who are interested in security. They might be or might not be security experts, but they're interested in like figuring this out. And there might be like QAs, they might be developers, they might be designers or managers. And then they will do threat modeling, the risk scoring, and figuring out the mitigation techniques. Whether the security team itself is more of doing like a leadership role, like providing materials and things like that. So basically, we don't have a specified security team yet in the company, but we still decided to start educating interested people in like being the security champions. And we are starting this week and the first month is obviously a pilot project, and we just limited to 2 teams. It's the apps and the wallet teams, both having the most attack surface. And this week we are starting with like trying to threat model like new features and making a workshop on that. And then we'll see how it goes. And if the experiment on these 2 teams goes well and we learn something, we fix something, and if it goes well, then we'll expand it to more core teams. And if this experiment is successful, then like by the end of this shifted Q3, we should have like all the core teams having this like security champions in and doing security work inside teams themselves. Yeah, that's all for me. There is a link to the pull request that has links to another document that you can read more on that.
Cool. Thank you so much, Igor. Yeah, it's really great to see that coming to fruition as well, so that we can make sure that we implement at a practical level some of the principles that Oscar mentioned earlier on in the town hall. With that, we move into infra and tooling, and this should be Jakob.
Yeah, hey. I've been away most of the last week, so I don't have as many changes as I wish I would have, but we have quite a lot of changes prepared to happen sometime this week. So first of all, the groundwork was laid for essentially full automation for China data center provided through Alibaba Cloud. This was started as work for providing continuous integration for CN status IAM domain, but eventually turned into properly integrating the Alibaba Cloud into our infrastructure. So probably sometime this week, an Ethereum cluster is going to come to Hong Kong. In other prepared changes, that we're going to have a proper deployment with continuous integration and staging for Open Bounty, and the migration is probably going to be happening, I assume, during the weekend. I'll have to check what are the low times. Jenkins master will probably be also migrated sometime this week into a host that with proper monitoring and much more disk space, since we've been having problems with that. In addition to that, we have tested and deployed a solution for UDP issues with that we've had with DigitalOcean and floating APs. Thanks to DigitalOcean engineers working for quite a few weeks, but they figure out a problem with UDP traffic when using floating IPs, and I've checked the solution they provided, and it works, which is great. Also, in other news, thanks to help from Roman, we now have 3 instead of just 1 macOS slaves in Jenkins for building nightlies and PRs, which is just amazing. And other small things, we now have a full continuous deployment for if report page. That's about it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, really, it's mind-boggling always to hear your updates after even just 1 week of work. Huge personal thanks from me for the help with ETH reports and making sure that the continuous integration works there as we try and scale that site and make sure that all of the data represented stays up to date. But the fact that you've got through UDP issues and setting up stuff in in China as well. It's just amazing to see. So really, really nice stuff there from Jakob. The discovery mail servers, this should be Adam.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so we are continue working on that. It's pretty close to be finished. So what we did recently was to build an interface to verify found mail servers from the discovery protocol. So right now we are able to use distributed mail servers and find them efficiently using discovery protocol. And yeah, the only part that's kind of left here is the smart contract integration. So thanks to Richard, we have a smart contract deployed to testnet. Right now we are writing an integration between Status Go and that smart contract to verify the mail servers. So yeah, after that, the only part that will be left is integration with, oh, actually this is back. There should be integration with Status React. So implementing all the updates in Status Go in Status React, and we will have like a full discoverable mail server solution for our networks. So yeah, that would be it.
Perfect. Yeah, I always feel a little bit sad, and this is one of the reasons that I'm excited for Oscar's core dev calls to happen sort of in between the town halls, because I mean, you know, the fact that we've managed to deploy a smart contract that actually has sort of crypto economic primitives encoded into it to run backend services like these mail servers is genuinely incredible. And you know, it deserves the whole tech talk of its own, I feel. That's
I just wanted to say that it's very simple right now. I mean, definitely we want to make it ready for what you said, for like more fine-grained and more crypto economic solution that's coming. Definitely, we also started like looking into some incentivization layer for mail servers and other stuff. So yeah, that's definitely coming. But this solution is super simple for now. It just, but yeah, it's like the first step. So I think it's still a quite nice step forward.
Yeah, of course. I know that it's the first steps, but it's the first steps that anyone is taking, right? And I think that people got, you know, very excited about Neil Armstrong walking out there for the first time for a very good reason. And perhaps that's a bit like a stretch for us, but it is really, really fantastic to see the first steps being made in terms of like, how do we actually incentivize at an infrastructure level the running and operation of these networks such that we can ensure decentralization is maximized in as many different respects as we can, which is awesome and really exciting. So P2P Initiatives, this is also Adam.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so there's a few things that we started like looking into in the last 2 weeks. So the first thing is like weekly releases of Status Go on GitHub. So this is like just a pilot program. So we wanted to see if it's worth doing that. I believe it is because it can engage community and make it clear what's going on with Status Go repository. It's not just Status React, but Status Go is also somewhere there. So it would be cool to have like some information about the updates. Also, it should make it easier for Status React and Status Desktop to upgrade, because they would have like a complete changelog with all the important things that changed week by week. So it's not like they are updating in blind, or they need to ask Status Go for some details or go through the commit logs and so on and so forth. It's gonna be much easier, I believe. So yeah, that we'll see. This is just started. We'll continue for a few weeks, and we see. We'll evaluate if that's something that we should continue doing. So this is one thing. Another one is new peers discovery protocol. We talked about it in the previous town hall. It's just that currently it has like a repository and a fully fledged auto implementation, so you can go and try to use it. We are also integrating that into Status Go, so we would like to pretty much have a possibility to run both peers discover protocols, and first of all get some statistics to share with the community, because Discovery version 5, this is something that was designed to actually, I guess, replace the current Discovery protocol. So we'll have some numbers. So hopefully we can prepare some blog posts, maybe something like that will describe our approach and Discovery version 5 and like some differences between those two. And the final one is initial work related to node reputation system and incentivization layer. So that's what Dimitri started looking into by collecting some research papers and other stuff. and he like put it all together. Yeah, we'll continue working on that. So we pretty much would like to review the document that was prepared and kind of figure out how we can approach this from the engineering perspective. So how we actually would like to implement this, and yeah, like prepare a plan or something like that. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Adam. Yeah, it's really great to hear all of these updates. As far as I'm concerned, the peer-to-peer team in particular remains absolute wizards. So with that, we move quickly into chats. So core chat, this should be Andrea.
Yes, thank you, Andy. So very quick update from us. So we started working on perfect forward secrecy, which is something that we discussed in Basel. It was top of the wall of shame. So basically that just consists very quickly into adding a layer of encryption on top of the current encryption that we have in the app. And it's kind of necessary to call ourselves a secure messaging app. So we started working on that. So far progress has been quite good. Lots of discussions. So please feel free to join the discuss thread also on GitHub, so that you can give more input. But we will continue to work on this for a while. Another initiative that we're working on is on adding the ability to add contact through ENS in the app, which will simplify a lot, basically contact discovery. And yeah, these are the two initiatives that we are currently working on and we will be working on. And that's all from me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Into wallet and accounts, and this is Barry to tell us just a little bit about the technical side of ENS, which we heard about from Dennis in the UX updates earlier.
Yeah, so over the past 2 weeks, actually a lot of the work has been done on the UX side, which Dennis talked about earlier. But we did confirm and we did implement in our prototype the DApp API, and it does work with the nightly build, so that's exciting, and that ENS would be the first app that takes advantage of it, but certainly not the last. And stateofus.eth domains could be used with the prototype, which is built around Ropsten right now, so that can give you a better experience of what it might be like to actually use the DApp. Of course, the prototype on Ropsten doesn't actually have the mobile first design implemented, but hopefully over the next 2 weeks, we'll get the lion's share of those UX redesigns implemented, and we'll have an updated prototype for people to try out. That's all from me.
Perfect. Yeah, that's really super exciting. And again, huge kudos to you and Andre in particular for the API and the work on this technical protocol. It's super exciting to see. So the wallet improvements, Goran, if you're there quickly.
Hi, everyone. So as usual, my update about wallet improvements is primarily focused on bug fixing. So we did a lot of bug fixing previously and intend to continue fixing bugs to make sure that wallet is safe, stable, and usable. Specifically, in the next period, we're going to focus more on the security side of things as a part of the security champions experiment that Igor already mentioned. And we'll also focus on making sure that the bug reports and feature improvement requests from the community are honored and that everyone has a smooth ride with the status app and wallet specifically, preferably without any bumps. So that's the update from the wallet team.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Goran. Dapps and developers, this is Rachel.
Yep. Hello again. So first, a couple of updates on the user-facing side. Thanks to some extracurricular work from Andre, we have a neat little addition to the browser coming soon, and that's a modal that slides up while you're browsing so that you can check your wallet balance without ever needing to leave the screen. This is actually something we heard requested by a few users, so kudos to Andre for taking that on in his spare time. We're also progressing on an update to the browser warning UI, and that's the pop-up that's meant to act as a caution to people against making transactions with any site that they don't really fully trust. but it's quite intrusive UX for warning that can be a little bit alarmist. So we're working on a more carefully targeted and accurate replacement for that. On the DevTools side, the JavaScript API for dApps that enables developers to get access to status users' Whisper ID and in the future other properties as well has been merged to develop. And as Barry mentioned, it's already in use for the prototype of the ENS DApp, which is really cool to see. So for our users, if you see that UX flow that Dennis presented earlier, where it asks for permission to access your profile, that would be this JavaScript API in action. Julian has wrapped the first iteration of his work on extensions to migrate the old commands we had over, and I'll actually let him expand on that today on the following slide. And lastly, we made progress on a new flow for Web3 object injection. And that again is something that we're doing to follow the standards set by EIP 1102. We've been in conversation with MetaMask about how best to make what will ultimately be a breaking change in a consistent, united way. And we're planning communications on that in the next couple of weeks so that developers will be aware of our intent and the change, because it will eventually require that they wait for users to grant permission before they have any of the Web3 data for a given user. Over the next couple of weeks, we have some planning to do around the new OKRs, I think, but we'll keep tracking on extensions and the Web3 change. And we'll also touch on Wallet a bit to work on ENS resolving there as a sort of prerequisite for the release of the username DApp. And that's it from me. So hopefully Julian can give us a quick demo on the next slide.
Yeah, so yeah, this is just a simple example of the current state of extension and how it fits into the whole status picture. So you, just for maybe some context, extensions is some mechanism that we are introducing just to make sure that third-party developers can actually enhance a status and essentially create their own logic and implement dApps, but directly within status. So you can see on the right-hand side, we have a simple demo of extending chat commands. So that's kind of the first hook that we expose from status. So yeah, here you can just test command and some basic parameters, but the idea here is just to show how simply you can do that kind of things, relying on what status actually provide, like the kind of features that status provide. And so this you can see on the left hand side. So it's the syntax itself is similar to JSON essentially. So it's purely data-based, which is pretty interesting for us because it allows the status at runtime to just inspect everything that is done by each extensions. So, which is kind of a prerequisite if you want to just control what's going on and just own the security and privacy features of extensions, because those will ultimately, they will be loaded remotely from potentially unsafe sources. And so that's kind of the next step that we will focus on, implementing remote loading so that they could be, extensions could be loaded from IPFS or other kind of storages. And so it will mean like enforcing permissions and providing the right information to end users so that they can decide safely if they want to run these extensions or not. So I plan to make some tech talk to describe a little bit more the concept involved and describe all the features we have, and eventually have people start working on extensions and show how to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Julian. One of our last updates for today is the Embark team, and this should be Yuri.
Hi there. So a week and a half ago, we had a workshop at DAppCon. So that went really, really well. We had very good feedback, and we definitely will do more of this type of workshops. Then we had we also are working on a separating the Embark.js library, so developers can use it separately from the main framework if they want to. And it also makes it easier for us to maintain. We're planning also to rename the library itself to avoid confusion with the main Embark framework. We also created a Docker image, which should make some developers' lives much easier, as it includes everything, all the dependencies just ready to go. We completed the ENS support. So previously in Embark 3.1, we implemented some partial support, but now on the next version of Embark 3.2, it will be a component on its own right, and it should make it much easier for developers to integrate it with their dApps. And this is something we'll go in more detail when 3.2 is released. We made also very good progress on adding code coverage support to Embark, so it's like a missing piece, but hopefully that will also come in 3.2. And finally, for the pipeline, we have been working on revamping the Embark pipeline, so it can be more flexible. Developers can customize it to their needs with their own Webpack configurations, and they can also make this way much lighter builds for production use. And the next 2 weeks, we're planning to release the 3.2 version of Embark, and we're also releasing more tutorials and documentation that we have been working on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yuri. It's another one of those slides which I feel bad about only spending 1 minute on, because this Embark team, I have never in my life seen a group of people work at a speed and productivity level that these developers do. It's insane to try and keep up with. But one of the best ways that you can is certainly by going over that DAppCon workshop, which was given by Eric. It's about building a decentralized Twitter. It's incredibly amazing and super easy to follow. So I strongly encourage that. And then, the fact that the Embark team has a Docker image up and running is just genuinely amazing. And I expect that to make a whole bunch of developers' lives a whole lot easier, as Yuri said. So if you haven't played around with Embark yet, definitely give it a go. It's incredible. The last sort of an interesting one before we get to research in the end here is the hard wallets, and this should be Michele giving us an update.
Yes, hi. This weeks we started integrating the hardware wallet Lite with the status app, so defining actually the user experience requirements, the user interface requirements. Also, the security audit for the Java card applet started. And in parallel, there is also work on the Pro wallet, which is a custom hardware we are developing, and now it can process all commands. So this is all low-level stuff. It's quite far from user interface yet. What needs to start is actual integration with the application, so that we can finally sign transactions using the Lite wallet first. And on the Pro side, it will get in the near future Bluetooth, so Bluetooth low energy implementation to communicate with the device. I don't know how many of you are aware of the device, but that's the update for this week.
Yeah, no, I wanted to stick this one in this town hall just because there has been a lot of interesting work happening on this recently, and it's something that we should introduce sort of more widely to core contributors while it's still in the early testing phases. I think that's for people who don't know what the hard wallet is, the basic sort of concept behind it is there's this weird tension between the fact that we want to, encourage mainstream adoption of Ethereum by putting Lite clients on people's phones such that they can actually interact with Web3 directly from their pockets. But unfortunately, the phones themselves are quite easy to compromise and certainly should be considered adversarial environments. And so the question becomes, how do we enable the sort of autonomy and decentralization and liberty that we want to without necessarily having to rely entirely on the phone, especially when users are doing sensitive things like signing transactions. And so this hardware wallet is basically a Java card, like Michele said, that will allow you to store sort of sensitive signature information outside of your phone and then only sign transactions when you sort of bring your phone and card together. But there will be more updates about this going forward every 2 weeks from Michele. It's just really great to see that, the basic UX stories are done and we're beginning with the security audit and stuff. It's very, very cool. Quickly to hear from the desktop team, this should be Vitaly about the updates of the last 2 weeks.
Hi guys, hi Andy. So we've been quietly working on adding some missing features from the P0 issue list. And these were the connectivity notifications and delivery, general network status notifications, some profile screen updates, profile links feature. And but the biggest achievement in the past week was the desktop develop merge accomplishment completion. So now we are sharing the completely same code base with develop branch. Huge kudos to Vladimir Kozeyev for that, because it removes all kinds of friction that we had before related to different versions of dependent libraries, etc., etc. And on the React Native side, there have been all kinds of different updates to React Native components, alert component fixes, models, pop-up menu, external library works now, and we are looking forward to integrating it so that our app looks much more aligned to the original designs. And for the next 2 weeks, again, the previous target about fixing app crashes still holds, because there are some specific scenarios where the app crashes or freezes. Also, it has been discovered that application becomes quite slow on huge chat views. That is Max is credited, and it's because the underlying view component does not have an internal memory model of the list of chats. So basically, for each element in the chat view, an additional UI component is created, so it leads to increased memory usage and lagginess over time. And obviously, a solution would be to implement some kind of virtual model that would only render the UI items that can be visible on screen or something like that. Well, and also we'd like to finally polish and bug fix the remaining PRs, so that yeah, everything that has been kind of coded is actually good to go. And yeah, so that's everything on our end.
Perfect. It's really, it's incredible to see, particularly that done column in the current stats keep on ticking over week by week. I remember when you started with only, I think, 3 issues done and sort of 11 outstanding. That was perhaps ambitious, but it's really great to see the advances here. And just to echo what Dennis said, huge kudos to Euch in particular, who's done an incredible job on the onboarding for desktop so far. It's really, really great to see. The last little bits is just a quick research update about Nimbus from Jacek or Mami.
Yes, it's by me.
There we go.
So, hi everyone. So last week it seems like the slide is not up to date, but it's fine. Last week we onboarded Dustin, who didn't write any NIM before, and neither Ethereum. What is really interesting and cool and is that in less than 2 weeks he was able to push many pull requests and fix many tests to the EVM test suite. On that front, the whole team is helping, and we now pass like 95% of the tests we enabled. So we have to enable more tests, which means that the client is getting more and more compliant with upstream. Also, following Q3 OKR and also the Ethereum Client Developer Conference in Berlin, I started to implement the new beacon chain, which is also known as sharding or Ethereum 2.0 or Casper, lots of names. And also, I started interacting with the Ethereum Foundation and the Ethereum Research Forum. So Nimbus is getting more limelight from exterior people, let's say. And another thing, it's the whole research part on Ethereum 2.0 is going in a lot of directions at the same time. So I started a repository in status-am/Athenaeum. which is a collection of various blog posts, implementation, research notes, and even forum discussions that will give anyone an overview of everything that is going on the research part. So from Casper, sharding, plasma, zero knowledge, cryptography, and stuff like this. And so for the next 2 weeks, our goals will be one, Yuri is working on blockchain sync from peer-to-peer for Nimbus. And we also, I don't know if it's the Ethereum Foundation, but someone started an Ethereum sharding implementers call. The first one will be on Thursday, and it will be a great time to ask many questions about Ethereum 2.0 for all client implementers.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mami. Yeah. Ethereum is definitely something worth checking out. I think that's it's certainly something that we'll want to write a blog post about, which we'll push out, Mami. And just huge kudos to you in general for being the world's best data scientist and helping so much with the ETH report stuff and you know, doing your normal job with them. It's really incredible to see. So that moves us into Q&A, but we've already gone a long way over our scheduled hour. So if you have further questions, perhaps you can ask them in our either within Status itself.
I'll just give quick 30-second response to the question. So
cool.
We have one saying, well, would the timeline be on integrating the OMG SDK? We have no timeline right now for that. Integrating live peer to support live videos and chat. That's an awesome idea, not something that we're working on right now, but it's, you know, adding call and video functionality to Status would be great. And when will we work on the Status Telenetwork? Right now, from our OKRs, the Telenetwork did not bubble up, so we most likely will not be working on it for the next likely 3 months, but it's definitely something that I'm personally excited about and that we do want to work on, but we're simply limited by our resources and prioritizing things that, you know, we've discussed earlier. So hopefully that addresses those 3 questions that came up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Nabil. And any further questions, you can just come and find us in Status. So download it. Generally speaking, it's worth exploring some of the other channels apart from just hashtag Status. So there's one called hashtag developers. There's another one called hashtag ETH-Berlin, where you can come and speak to us about what you'd like to see at that event and get excited with us for attending. There's a whole bunch of stuff to explore within Status. So you can either just join Status, join introductions, join developers, and ask any questions further that you might have. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you for Townhall 15 in 2 weeks' time. So long.